All right, so now I'd like to go through and identify and tag the continental islands. And here's the basic idea is if we look at our distance from the Pleistocene islands, so if we look at um, our Ice Age islands and click on one of them, you're going to get all of this info. But the distance to the Pleistocene islands, this thing here, if we look at the property, you'll see that it has the land property of 1, right? Because back when we made this thing, we did it um, by creating first a land binary where it was 1 if it was land, and then basically it was no data if it wasn't land, and that's how we created these vector objects. Similarly, if you look at our islands with area and distance um, and have them draw in, and eventually it'll draw, and if I click on Santa Cruz, what you'll see is the um, islands with area and distance. We're going to have to wait for it a little bit, but this feature, if we look at its properties, the land class here is going to be 2, right? Because we made this with a land binary that was either 2 or nothing, right? Because I had you multiply that land binary by 2, kind of for this reason, so that we could distinguish the islands of old from the islands of today just with this land class. And so now what I'd like to do is just basically identify any of the continental islands and change this land class from 2 to 3. Does that make sense? So that we can start having 1 be the Ice Age islands, 2 be the oceanic current islands, and 3 represent the continental current islands. So here's how we're going to do that. I'm going to copy this thing and then go over here and paste it in. And the first thing we need to do is just to write a function to tag continental islands. And so this tag continental is going to be a function that takes a feature. And for any old feature, what I'd like it to do is return that feature, but set, and then I'm going to do parentheses, curly brackets, the land, and make sure you spell it right. The land property, I want it to be changed to 3. I'm basically saying, like, please rewrite the land property so that it's 3 rather than whatever it was previously. Is that fair? And so then what I'm going to do here is say, all right, I want to go into now and then. So I'm going to say the continental islands are the things in now and then, and I'm going to even copy this thing and say that I'm going to filter for anything that does not equal max of 1, because that's going to be anything that is not a 1 should be a continental island, right? And then with that subset, I want to dot map this function. So anything that's not an oceanic island, I then want you to write 3 into the land property. Does that make sense? And so then if I print this islands continental, continental, and ask to look at the first one and say run and switch back over to console, it'll think about it. But hopefully now we'll have something where this one, so that's from the other one. But this one now should have a max that's not 1 and a land that's equal to 3. Is that fair? So I've just basically created a continental feature collection and also changed the land property. And that's so that that's good. That's what we wanted to do. So I'm going to keep cruising.